How's it going, everyone? Welcome to my guide for Achilles in SMITE. Achilles is an extremely versatile warrior, being able to be played in the solo lane or the jungle as a bruiser or assassin, and has seen some play as a full-on tank in the support role. Achilles' kit is designed with versatility in mind, so in turn his builds follow suit. You can spring for any meta ability-based bruiser or assassin build depending on the situation, and chances are it's going to feel great on Achilles. Now let's dive into Achilles' abilities, starting with his passive. At any point during the match, while Achilles is in the fountain, he can press the auto attack button to switch between a defensive stance where he gains a flat amount of health and protections based on level, or an offensive stance in which he gains a flat amount of power and movement speed, again based on level. This passive offers Achilles a significant advantage over other characters regardless of the stance you choose. However, how much of an advantage you gain depends on choosing the right stance in the current game state. Of course, in the jungle you'll always want to have the offensive stance on, other than maybe in a hyper late game situation. But for the solo lane, it is completely dependent on the solo lane matchups or if you think the enemy jungler is going to be visiting you often. I'd recommend when you're first starting out with Achilles to keep the offensive stance most of the time, as most of the time dealing more damage is preferable to being able to mitigate more damage, given how aggressive Achilles wants to be. Speaking of aggression, let's get to his first ability. Achilles swings his shield forward and creates a massive cone AoE in front of him, with the first fourth of the ability doing full damage and stunning, with the rest of the area dealing reduced damage and applying no crowd control effects. This ability seems simple on the surface, because it is. The sheer size of the AoE means it's a great poke tool as well as lane clear ability, even allowing you to sit on the side of the minion wave and still hit the entire wave to avoid some solo laner abilities, like Tier Dash or Nike one. Just keep in mind that since the stun is only at the very start of the cone, flicking it onto a target who's seeing it coming isn't always the easiest thing, as they may hard juke it as it's about to come out. Next up is Achilles' 2, which grants him a percent-based protections and power boost, as well as a small heal for every target hit by your abilities, up to 4 heals depending on the level of this ability. This ability further enforces Achilles' versatility, essentially boosting the bonus stats your passive grants you, as well as enhancing some of the stats not buffed by your passive like your protections or power, respectively. Achilles is of course balanced in part with having this ability active, so you'll never want to fight without it on. It simply grants Achilles too much across the board. Protections, power, and a potent heal all in one, for it to be justifiable to use any abilities without this ability active when you're going for a trade. Of course, barring when you've already just won a fight and are chasing someone down or something like that. And what would you chase people down with if not your third ability, which lets Achilles dash a short distance in any direction based on whatever direction Achilles is moving when the ability is cast. Then, Achilles is able to fire a short AoE line in front of him which passes through all enemies. And if this AoE hits an enemy god, Achilles is granted an additional dash, which once again grants him the AoE attack. This ability is of course Achilles' signature move, and his most complex and versatile. Being able to hold the AoE strike after dashing towards or away from an opponent essentially makes them guess on if and when you will use the strike, as well as giving you the capability of multiple extremely fast and fluid auto attack cancels, offering you supremely high damage on top of a significant distance closer, enabling you to easily get a stun with your 1. When you're first starting with Achilles, it's fine to simply mash the dash and AoE strike, but you're really going to want to learn the timing to cancel the dashes and strikes for an auto attack cancel as soon as possible, as it's leaving significant damage on the table if you forego them. Now onto Achilles' ultimate ability. Achilles enters a CC immune state, charging up for a moment, then performing a dash that stops on the first enemy god hit. This dash does significant damage, but more importantly, if it hits an enemy god at 30% or less health, the god is executed, and Achilles is able to use the ability again, stacking percent damage increase on himself each time he resets the ability this way. The ability is simple on paper, but there are a few things to keep in mind. The charge up is more than long enough for people to juke or use a relic like Aegis or Meditation to avoid the execute portion of it. And you should expect in a team fight for some enemies to urge you to ult, when in truth they're only trying to bait you into using it while they have one of their aforementioned relics available. Additionally, keep in mind that the dash itself does formidable damage, so it's not always the best move to keep it in reserve in the hopes for an execute. Sometimes it's best to use it mid-combo, as it serves a similar role to your 3 as a damaging gap closer, and will force the enemy to play around you differently than they otherwise may have been planning to, dealing more damage than they may have been expecting while keeping your 3 in reserve. When you see that big red execute icon, it can be tempting just to go for it. But as with most things in SMITE, you'll want to assess the situation around you and make sure you're not ulting into immediate Aegis followed up by a Kraken to the face. In leveling Achilles' abilities, you typically want to max the 1 first, giving its lane clear and poke, then the 3, and then the 2, with the ult often not receiving a point other than at level 5, since the execute range doesn't change with leveling. Some jungle Achilles players level the 3 over the 1, which I don't personally agree with since it neuters your jungle camp clear for minimal benefit, but if you like it more, you can go for it. Here are a few short combos you could do with Achilles, some involving blink and others not. Here's a pretty basic one for some harass in lane. 3 auto, 3 auto, 2 auto, 1 auto, and wait for any movement abilities, then use your 3 again. Another is to 2, use your 1 at range for poke, then dash in with your 3, and if they challenge you, use the strike and dash out again. A simple gank combo would be blink, 1 auto, 2 auto, 3 auto, 3 auto, then chase him down and execute if you can. Moving on to combos with your ult in the middle of it, blink, 1 auto, 2 auto, 3 auto, 3, 4 auto. Typically, Achilles' combos are variations of these basic ones, varying on when and how you utilize your 3, if you blow all of it in one go for maximum damage, or only use the first dash and AoE and hold the rest for chase potential following movement abilities. This is a little difficult for Achilles since he has such high flex potential as either a full-on bruiser or full-on assassin, and of course each character's impact on him will differ depending on your playstyle of choice. Guardians are a problem for Achilles no matter what, of course worsening the less tanky he is. But in general, their ability to shut down his 1 as well as his movement with his 3 makes him a pain, as well as their ability to simply walk in front and subsequently block his ultimate. Warriors are generally less of a problem, as he can typically trade evenly if not outtrade most of them damage-wise, while most lack the forms of CC necessary to completely shut him out, barring a few. Laning against certain warriors can feel a bit like trying to build a Lego set while wearing boxing gloves, but others are a complete breeze, these typically being when Achilles can benefit from poking them out or just generally avoiding the lane opponent's damage, and vice versa. With assassins again, it's mostly CC dependent. In terms of trading blow for blow, Achilles can usually keep up, but sometimes their forms of CC simply counter him too hard or leave you too few options when it comes to challenging them if they dive on your team. With hunters, well, it can depend on the meta, like for most warriors. Sometimes it's near impossible for you to get near them without losing your health to 3 or 4 auto attacks, like how it is right now. But sometimes it's the other way around, and hunters' auto attacks feel like a light breeze. As is usual with bruisers and assassins, the ones that can easily get distance on you are okay, but the ones with truly hard self-peel can be a pain. And of course the ones with no movement to speak of at all are free real estate. With mages, Achilles can usually run wild on them, with most of them lacking both the CC and movement to deal with him. And with raw protection shred mostly out of the way for mages right now, a bruiser Achilles has an easy time laughing off most of their damage while still dealing plenty of his own. The only real times you'll need to worry are when they have long, sustained CC, which is of course few and far between when it comes to mages, so for the most part, you'll breeze right through them. And that about wraps up my guide for Achilles. Is there anything you think I missed? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.